So for those of you that have not logged on to the Hemp Hallway, I encourage you to do so. It's, or you can access it through Global Hemp Association. It's our community platform. When you log in, there's a map. You can kind of, I'll actually show you really quick. Let's see if I can log in here. No, I'm afraid if I do, actually, I'm going to skip that because I'm afraid if I do, I'll mess Neil's presentation up and I've got it all ready to share. So I don't want to goof that up, but super easy. When you log into the Hemp Hallway, you can log in through globalhempassociation.org or through the hemphallway.com. Once you log in, there's an entire place where, or an entire map. So you can see who's who, you can search what they're doing, what part of the industry they're in. I'm also getting ready to launch a public map to put processors on the map so that people can see who's processing. So I'd love feedback from you guys and data there. Also, when you're in the media center on Hemp Hallway, you'll be able to search all of our past notes, existing content. We've partnered with Hemp Today and Cannabis News, Cannabis News Bank. Actually, News Bank has been around for years and years and years. It has an incredible database where you can search and use that tool to for research, for content, for building your platforms. And so that's available. Links are on that platform as well. You can sign up for memberships and so forth. Register for events, makes it a lot easier. Other than that, I welcome everybody. I get a little bit distracted. I'm trying to let everybody in at the same time. I'm really glad to be back on this format or be back here. We took a couple of weeks off and I've missed seeing everybody. Hi, Bruce. I see you now. Ross, welcome. Danica, it's good to see you. I'm excited about our guest. I'm excited to get this conversation started. I would like to open it up so that you guys can ask questions and really get to the bottom of, or I guess move this along on the carbon sector. You know, calculations, what is it? What's in it for you? What's in it for those that are asking? I see that there's quite a few of you on here that are pretty involved on the research side as well as the agriculture side. So without further ado, please feel free to leave questions or comments in the chat box. Also, if you'd like to raise your hand to join in on conversation, please do that. When you are in conversation, please just be respectful of time, ask a question, engage. It's not necessarily an opportunity to sell or pitch what we're doing individually, but to really stay on focus around the carbon discussion today. Neil is our speaker, our guest speaker. Keep yourselves on mute when you're not speaking or when you're not talking, just to be respectful of time. And I think that's it. Neil, did I forget anything else?
No, you're doing always a great job. Thank you.
Okay, well, perfect. So I'm going to hand it over to Neil. Neil, you just let me know when you're ready for me to share your slides. And again, thank you guys very much for joining. We'll talk. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this to about a 20-minute conversation or do some illustrations. So these slides will be buried in the recording, and there are QR codes in there if you need to jump straight onto the some of the websites that I'm suggesting can be helpful to understand. Okay, my interest is I have been amazed at how Miss Mandi has created something out of nothingness. So kudos for Mandi for doing a great job. My interest is around carbon in the cropping system, the farming system. And my curiosity about hemp is it's a huge mass. I mean, some of the photos that have been shared here of some of these plants or these stands that, you know, approach a sugarcane field in terms of at least the appearance of density, but I don't know what the total biomass yield is. So what I'm going to try to illustrate is for those that are in, you know, interested in a carbon project, trying to enroll themselves into these opportunities. What I'm going to offer is if you're a grower, this is to growers, if you have a grower position, I'm happy to assist you in helping you pilot through, at least in the fall of 2022 or 2021 here, how to get yourself at least where you could look and see if your farming system has sensitivity with or without hemp. And if it does have sensitivity to hemp, meaning that there is a biomass that can contribute to the carbon acquisition, the soil carbon health, right? Then I'm happy to try to figure that out. At this time, there is like no knowledge on this area. If you go to the primary players in the industry, particularly the ones who are in what we're going to term the modelers, those that make estimates based on crop and weather and just a whole bunch of these environmental measurements, they don't have any idea how hemp will perform in a cropping system. What happens to the following crop? Does it have a negative effect on corn if it's in front of corn, or soybean, or don't even know what the weed pests are? And some of the stuff, just the mechanical questions are, when you have a stand like the fellow from California the other day showed us about, and he has a stalk that's almost 30 feet long and the stump is 3 inches in diameter, those are really rough on tires and things. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in the production of hemp that my suggestion to Mandi is help organize the producers here and that have experience in 2019 and 2020 with the hemp crop, the fielded crop, both the varieties you've used, the planting density, whatever little bits of guidance that can be gleaned out of your histories, that would be super duper in terms of helping us understand the next 2022 season and 2023 coming. All right, that said, Mandi, can I get you to start with slide 1, please?
Can you guys hear me okay? I don't know if my Zoom is working. You can. Okay, so I'm going to try to log into my phone. Something every time we get in this group meeting. I can have one-on-one Zooms and it does just fine. But
Okay.
Let's see what it lets me do.
All right, well, while
we're going to wing it.
Pushing forward on this a bit. There's 2 large communities as you hear all this noise. If you're looking into this, there's 2 sides. There's one called avoidance carbon credits, and then there's true removal carbon credits. And okay, all right. So, any case, there's this process, and so you can either go in through the USDA software as a service on the net, or you can enter in through the NORI website. The NORI website uses the same engine that the USDA has created. Okay, so there's coherency and consistency. It's just the NORI people have improved what we call the interface, the API. They try to make it simpler. And on the case, you do not have a bunch of the fine detail like how much nitrogen or phosphate or, some of these details that are quite important, but you don't need to have them absolute on your first guess. They can fill in the blanks for you. So they have a process that's evolved above the process that the USDA has put together. So the piece that we're looking at is the topmost foot of soil, okay, is the inventory that we're going to look at, or 300 mils in the international case. And so the project, I don't know, just for the heck of it, I call it the Black Soil RX for the vintage years for this project. If you want to dive in this, would be through 2016 through 21. These are depending on which way you go, which registry you go with, that these early 4 or 5 years help establish baseline of your model. And at the same time, they also permit some grandfathering of the additionality practice, right? The key element is something has to change in the farming system that is carbon enabling, right? And so that is the increment that we tend to measure. So if you've only been in conventional hard agriculture with steel and, disc plows and chisels and all these things that go on in the soil cultivation process, and you abandon that for a no-till method, then you have this additionality step and you can start measuring from the season that you initiated, in this case, example of the no-till, right? So what is the game that we're playing here? What we're trying to get to is that there is this test in the soil carbon system, really across all of the carbon game, about additionality, and that means, okay, there's Mandi.
Yes.
How are we doing?
Good. I can see you all now.
I held on them pretty good for a few minutes on my own.
Keep going. Good job.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, these pictures, it's hard to convey all this stuff just, audibly, but any case, there is this additionality that you have to achieve. And the process of understanding, again, that agriculture additionality is a removal carbon credit, not an avoidance carbon credit, because we have in our own farming systems a number of emissions, and then we also have a big sink that we have, which is through our soils and things. So the stuff that we emit are nitrous dioxide and methane from our ruminants. Certainly you got big heaps of manure hanging around. You got off-gassings from that. You also have the responsibility, if you're buying lots of nitrogen, to consider what that effect is if you're bringing that on your farm, because if you end up and you have leakages of nitrous dioxide, then you have a really hot global gas that you're contributing that's 380 plus over that of carbon dioxide. And then you have all the internal stuff about, tractor diesel haulings and things like this that go on within the farm. And if you are, out in the frontiers and you're swapping forest ground or you're converting wetland onto crops, then you have land use changes. Okay, so these are part and parcel of the farm scale budgets, right? And one of the issues, the big deals here is we're in an agricultural revolution, truly, right? And that is when we abandon the cultivation of the soil. And when that happened, that was a practice that came up across thousands of years, but it's also yielded a lot of erosion. And just like any campfire, okay, boy, I got a screen this time, Mandi. Does this show on your side?
Are you seeing
I see
presentation?
Yeah, I see a presentation. So that's if we can skip down to, okay, all right, we're on the third. Want to go back to 2, please? I'm controlling that. Did it change?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So where I'm at now is the tillage is the big problem, right? So if you're tilling the soil, you can be as organic can be, but if you're ripping and tearing the soil still, you are attacking the biomass of your field, right? It's just like a campfire. The more you poke at it, the faster it burns. So the illustration here in this lower right-hand corner just shows you that how different tillage features really open up the soil to this oxidation problem. So no-till is really critical. The process of the contract and then is to play the game of no tillage and these other effects across a number of years. So the particular contract I'm talking about here is 10 years. So you would sign up, let's say here in November of 2021 and say, okay, I'm interested in a contract and my performance is really going to start in the spring of, possibly it might already be in the field if I have cover crops sitting out there. But you're starting now, and now you have to look across the years. So 2 things, you need a baseline, and let's flip to the next screen. If I can. All right, you should get I don't know if that's Mandi or me. There we go. Okay, so this is the game here. So you're at the question mark, right? You're starting here. And you can continue doing what you're doing and destroy your ground if you want, or you can do the no-till, at least stabilize create a zero erosion condition. But then you have these different effects here that are the technology shifts we're talking about, this increased carbon sequestration opportunity that we're trying to find, right? So no-till plus cover crop. Well, no-till plus hemp. Hemp is a crop nobody's ever seen before. It's not in any rotations I'm aware of. So it has to have additionality features, period. It fits very nicely the whole story. And but we don't know what these numbers are. We don't know what happens in this crop after we've initiated the system. But, if it's what we call a green manure, where we take and grow a hemp crop, a tall hemp crop at high density, and then we just mow it down as though we're in, trying to rejuvenate land or reclaim lands and use 100% of that biomass as this green manure, that might be a solution to discover how to grow hemp when you're too far from the buyers or the processing centers to warrant transport. You want to grow the crop and it's coming, but you want to get at it. So those that have some of this in the field, I'd be curious to know if you could chop any out and tell us what you got. So that's one pathway. If you're in the seed business, a little bit I've seen harvesting of that. It could be somewhat like analogous to a sorghum crop, where you're taking off just the head end of the standing crop and you leave a lot of biomass of stalk and whatnot behind. So those are the unknowns that we need agronomy help on. So over here in the big picture, the main styles of what we call protocols are going to be these different ideas. There's a couple out there that we term as model, where every year you increase the detail of data that you have, you improve the model, you perform against the model. The model is hopefully is calibrating itself to your outfit. Then you have other outfits that they're very hard-nosed about it. And they say measure at the start, measure every time you want a performance value. And then the third outfit's this hybrid where it's measure, model, measure, which I think is probably where the soil health planning of all this carbon stuff comes in. Last little bit here is that if you're in avoidance carbon, you're typically going to see a project of 5 years or less, right? So these avoidance carbon credits are really the cheapos. They're the ones you may see out there $7 or $8 a metric ton. When you get into these areas where the carbon token or the carbon credit is based on, it offers true removals, like the soil carbon case, the eco-service of soil carbon improvement, those are 5 to 25 years. If it's a forestry related thing, it's probably going to run to 50 years. And so these are like easements on your land, right? They have some call on this. And if you transact your properties, you have to share these details forward, just like a transaction on your title, right? So last bit is we come down here to the next station down, number 4. Mandi, if you're controlling the screen.
I just clicked on it.
Okay, let's see, there we go. All right, so we have a couple reasons why soil carbon is a big deal for agriculture. And I'm going to say this first panel right here is where agriculture really is. We know there's a crop response to improve the organic matter. In this case, the more to the right you are, the higher the organic matter, and on the left is then your corn yield in this case. So there is a positive relationship. And so there is opportunity to do what we call in variable rate technology. We can assign different rates of fertilizers to try to help express this basic element here. This is one case where we have a sensor in the row. This is built by AgCo, and their precision planter group is called smart firmer, and it has a couple different lights here in this shoe that fits into the planting, right? Seeds falling down through the green thing and goes underneath this, it gets pushed into the soil. Same time it reads the organic matter and the soil moisture and stuff. So this is called real-time feedback. This makes money for the farmer. Here's another similar device. It goes out and it can be in the row at time of planting, but it's also can be singular out there in the field doing, again, this using different methodologies. In this case, this one here is a electrical current that tells us what the texture is. They have a similar sort of probes for organic matter and temperature and thing. This one up here, this looks on a drill, this kind of interesting project. The top two photos are the researchers' prototype presentation. And then the top below is the product of the gaining the grant, right? So they've added obviously it's harder to drill into the soil than they thought, so they put a bar on it. And then this outfit these outfits here have similar sensors, just operate differently. The endpoint, though, is this process by this map of the central corn area of the United States, right? These are the areas that show the highest agronomic potential to gain carbon, right? It has the right soil qualities, the right environment. The farming systems probably in these areas are probably already showing heavy use of no-till methods. So this is a satellite-based methodology that they're going to also be able to watch on your farms down the track. And so the last slide, and then I'm going to leave it open to conversations and other people's knowledge here, is this. These are 4 registries that if you're curious about the rules of how this is going to be done, that you might look at them. They have different scales, right? Both the Vera and the Climate Action Reserve, to me, represent what we call mainnet in the blockchain. So these are really the heavy duty, large scale, hopefully millions of transactions daily of buy, sells in carbon. But there are protocols, and you have to have, if you want to list on the registry, it's just like going to Chicago. You say, well, I have corn to sell, but then they say, well, what kind of corn you got? Well, I got number 2 corn, and I'm going to deliver it in March, March delivery, future delivery. So those are 2 top ones. And then this B carbon and Nori are sort of upstarts that are involved in this. As far as I know, of all the players, Vera, Climate, B Carbon, and others, that Nori is the only one that you can go to a website and buy carbon from and actually pay a farmer for it. So that's where I'm going to leave that off. I open up the opportunity to those growers that want to try to figure out how we wedge it into your carbon plan, the carbon conservation plan, how to put hemp in to at least get a start, figure out what's going on. And I think because we're located in Fort Collins, and a lot of this USDA modeling and whatnot is done on the campus here at Colorado State, that I have the ability to go over there and beg on my knees to help us understand how to potentially add this hemp into the business. Right now, USDA says, hey, we don't know what's going on because we don't have any long-term history with this crop. And so that's a pretty abrupt answer, but it's also fair from the agronomic sciences. So that's part of what my appeal is to you guys, is for the season 2022, a little bit of cooperation and some layouts and thinking about how to do some different trials of similar lines across, various parts of the states could be a fast action to do on-farm research, kind of kick the old USDA in the butt and get them moving a tad. So over to Mandi.
Karen, I saw that your camera's off. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add.
Well, I certainly appreciate what Neil has talked about, and it's true that USDA is doing quite a lot of research on this, especially with the new Biden administration that's very interested in it. There are people who are actually doing carbon sequestration with hemp, and I think long term we need to try to persuade them I've been thinking that from a competitive point of view, they might not come in, but maybe they would come and talk about what they are doing, and so we can try to work on that.
Sure. So, Neil, there was a question that came in that was over. I don't know if we want to address that. I know that Sandra, you're on.
Right. Actually, that's a great question. There's a kind of essentially it was about is where is the carbon in the plant, in the hemp plant, and there's a sort of a set of percentages. One is called the roots, the shoot, and the fruit. So these are the general, botanic communities, right? Everything that's in the ground, that's about 20%. Everything's in the stock is about 30%. And everything that's in the seed or up in the fruit is the balance. And those ratios they vary across some of the crops, not a whole heap, but they do vary. And that will give you sort of a first guesstimate about the nature of the biomass. The stuff that we're concerned about for soil carbon is hemp. If it's taken completely, it leaves very little residue behind. You may end up extracting, I don't know what the yield is, and I beg you guys to share. Some say it's 10 and some say it's 20. And I look at it, some of it looks like a sugarcane field. So could even have more, but the biomass is the triggering event, and that feeds the soil. Honestly, you're feeding all the little critters all this biomass, and they're converting it and turning it into the goodness of healthy soil. And then their normal life cycles help recycle nutrients and just do all sorts of unknown and marvelous science things, but we don't, we're still kind of learning into it. So when I say green manure, I just mean that you take the whole crop and you just mow it down and you leave it on the land. That's very similar to what we call cover crops that are used to help protect fallowed fields, right? You end up at the end of fall and your beans are gone and the corn's gone. And if you plant in some of these cover crops, you can get the benefit of their abilities to scavenge things out of the deeper soil and bring it into the living biomass. Then that again ends up recovering back into the soil and feeding all the goodness of the healthy environment again, right? So that's what we're after, is this idea of if you move to a more biologic base, this ecoservice system, agriculture improves, the soils improve, all sorts of goodness happens, better retention of moistures and healthier nutrient cycles and more living worms and all the things that go on in a healthy, well-fed soil that you don't have when you've been cultivating it and cutting it and tilling it and then poisoning it and over-fertilizing it and salting it. And I mean, there's a zillion ways to argue this in the agronomic sciences, but it works towards a more gentle system. So regenerative is only occurring when it's capturing carbon. Sustainable is only when you're not eroding and leaking nutrients from your soils anymore. Kind of my gripe, leave that alone. Over.
Okay, so Sandra, you had one other question. There were some statements made about the pesticides and herbicides. And it says, one question is, no-till is usually quite herbicide intensive, but no herbicides are registered for use on the hemp in the US. Are you assuming herbicides would be used?
Good question. Nobody knows. We don't, you can hit it down with gramoxane or Roundup, that's a universal biocide, but the process that appeals to me is the roll down where because I think you got to chop it down. You got to do something. You reduce its size, cover it, make sure the field is, terminating, as they call it. You can terminate the crop by a roll down. That's a common, or not a common, but it's a coming no-till alternate to chemistries, to fertilizer or herbicides. So there's a lot of clever things that are in this no-till system that we're still discovering. The organic people, because they don't allow pesticides, at least the hard chemistry types, they have been pushing on these different techniques to terminate the crop and the cover crops, and in this case, the hard hemp crop, where it's just used, like I say, as a green manure. And if you're in reclamation work, my understanding is hemp has been a long-term benefiter. They've used it on a lot of disturbed lands and simply left it as even when it dies, it reseeds and whatnot. So, you got a lot of opportunities here, but the dilemma is the generalized practice, the NRCS awareness, the crop insurance issues, and these are all going to be catching up with the community of hemp growers. The suggestion is, how can you get it into a rotation is the game, at least from the big picture. If you have some thoughts that you're just going to grow hemp after hemp after hemp, you got a farming system nobody's defined yet. So, and what its effects are, you might end up, just like a lot of things, a couple really good years followed by disease and disaster, because your same crop on the same land tends to persist long-term bugs and disease and stuff. So,
Right.
I don't know, you got so much going in front of you. It really needs an agronomy group to help pilot a few items for 2022 season and beyond. A few hundred of you people aligned behind Mandi, and she starts calling the land grants and the experiment stations saying, we need some help. They'll pay attention. Go, Mandi.
Okay, so I'm going to call. I've got a couple of questions, and then I see that there's a whole bunch here that I will scroll down and get to. Tony, I see you've been raised, and then Tony. So Tony DeVera, and then Tony Crooks. I don't know how both Tonys on here ended up with their hand raised. Go ahead, sir. You're right.
Oh, sure. Just a little piece of information that could be helpful that I've known for a little bit. There was a paper from 2009. I think it was one of the papers by Amaduchi, where they established that hemp produces below ground root biomass to above ground, biomass at a ratio of 1 to 5.46. So if you have a yield of 5.46, tons, you can expect to have a root biomass of 1 ton. I remember the paper saying that seemed to be high relative to other crops. So Neil, when you were kind of asking like where is the carbon in the plant, most of it is certainly in the body of the plant that is harvested for use, whether it's fiber or building materials or whatever else. But there's also a significant amount in the roots, and that also doesn't characterize what there might be in terms of liquid carbon flow, like root exudates or whatever that are going into the microbiome, which I'm not sure if the these services that you were talking about have developed methodologies for characterizing that. And another thing I wanted to also point out was that there are a couple of papers also from Europe, from a group in Spain, where they've seen increases in yield in winter wheat grown after hemp for up to 2 years after the hemp was grown. Taking that into consideration, and also just how vigorous fiber hemp is, especially subtropical varieties like varieties from southern China or perhaps from Australia, I would propose that an appropriate rotation might be hemp, corn, soy, something like that, so you can take advantage of those 2 years of increased yields, and also some of the weed suppression that you get out of hemp, which Sandra in the chat also pointed to some research from the Rodale Institute where they observed similar things in terms of having a very clean field after growing some hemp.
Tony, you're a member.
You're hired. Awesome.
Yeah, just a point, root exudate is really interesting stuff, because it goes on. This is the goodness that actually is a lot of the soil science people are very excited about. And any of you that have heard about bugs and jugs in terms of an accelerant for soil quality, soil health, soil carbon, is that exudate actually is the plant appeals and feeds certain soil critters to its benefit, right? Particularly in the fungi side. And the fungi are actually what we call the chelators. They're the ones that actually go to the minerals and scratch away the mineral pieces, right? The coppers and the phosphates. And so the myceliums have to be fed by the roots, and the trade is myceliums will deliver the goodness to the plant of these small materials in trade for the exudates. Ask a land grant outfit, say how much, in a 200 bushel acre corn field, how many pounds of exudate has the corn given to the plant, to the soil? And that is like a big question mark, but it's obviously something really important. Over.
Over and out. Yeah. Tony squared. Go ahead, sir. I saw you've got a project you're working on for this.
Yes, I have hello everybody. I'm in England, in Leeds. I had a long conversation with Michelle Kerr.
I can't hear you very good. Can anybody? Is it just me?
Oh, sorry, just a minute. Let me see if this will work better.
That's really poor audio quality. Might want to try to change something.
Yeah.
If you close your video, you might get better bandwidth for that.
Well, the bandwidth should be all right, but annoying.
Dang it.
Let me.
There's another question on here. Maybe while you work on that.
Yeah.
Another question was, how many tons per acre per year of additional soil carbon have been verified, Neil? Are you familiar, or does anybody know that answer?
Yeah, well, that's a perfect question. Of course, that's all contingent upon how clever the farming system is, okay? But for, the way I try to describe it is this way. If you're in the Midwest, in the heartland for the corn game, and you have a healthy, well-balanced, no-till cropping system with complex rotation and possibly livestock, the range, right, in year to year, there's variation year to year, but it might be anywhere from 0.3 metric tons per acre to as much as 1.5 metric tons per acre of soil organic carbon, okay? So make sure you understand, soil organic carbon is not measured yet in carbon dioxide equivalents. So to get the carbon dioxide equivalents from soil organic carbon increase, you multiply by 3.67. So if you go through the process and you say, okay, based on the numbers, I have 1 metric ton of soil organic carbon, the actual units that you have available for transaction on a carbon credit transaction would be 3.67 for each unit of soil organic carbon, right? Conversions. So that's a nice little kicker for Aggies, because we measure pretty much the soil carbon as a percentage. And because it's in percentage, you have to go through some calculation to come up with these mass ideas, right? But yeah, so between 0.3 and 1.5 metric tons carbon dioxide equivalent, or yeah. So what is that? If you did the most, 1 metric ton, 3.5 metric tons of carbon dioxide, current price might be $20. So maybe what is that, $70 per acre opportunity? If everything's going good, right? If you're just starting out, your field is still, still in kindergarten. It can't, it's not going to grow the same way as it is once it's fully in a regenerative condition. And then, I don't know, some of these growers that are in the no-till game and pay attention to this, and they're starting to get cluey to the carbon game. Some of them are saying they can get a full percentage in 2 to 3 years. That's a lot of carbon, that that tells you what's going to happen 5-10 years down the track, but it's getting there, right? It's the USDA wants to give you some money to get started, help you with this. So that may be another topic about how to appeal to get, again, I think hemp is a pure additionality opportunity, but we just don't know what it is, and we need your help. Go ahead, over.
Tony.
Hi,
I feel like
can you
we're
hear
on
me now?
Clubhouse. Yes, sound much better. Nope, just kidding.
Okay, so I'm in England, in Leeds, and I work for a company. All our projects are in Africa, and I basically, I'm group head of research and development, and my job is to solve problems for governments in countries in Africa. I was asked by a few years ago about how to improve the agricultural economy of Zimbabwe, and so I did something about that. That solution is beginning to be in place, but everything takes ages to do in Africa. But the latest, I've just started a new project about getting as many people as absolutely possible to grow as much hemp as possible in as many areas as possible, and fix that carbon into back in the ground, like coal in reverse, or into products, into building materials. And, this will help the economies of lots of countries, literally millions of people, and so on. And I had a very long and very interesting and lovely conversation with Michelle Staley the other night. And she is sort of really pleased that, what I'm doing, and I hope that my project is welcome with you guys, because you people have lots of, I know it's entirely different continents and all that, but you guys have a great deal of knowledge. And what I'm going to, I've built this site. It's at the first stage. I'm just putting the link in the sidebar thing. So that's to raise awareness and get people on board. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, by the way, I have 25 years of web services and information management systems, so I can build that. I'm doing that. The next thing I'm going to do is a toolkit that will be like forums for people to work together to find buyers, suppliers. No reason why it can't be like more than Africa. And there will be a knowledge base, marketplace of products, and just a whole ton of things to enable people to work together. But I don't know. I mean, maybe is that sort of thing welcome? I don't know.
It's definitely so. Being part of the association, it's definitely something that we are doing. Karen, go ahead. I saw you speak.
Well, it's very welcome.
Yeah,
very, very welcome. Is this being funded by the EU or the Brits, or privately?
Well, as far as this particular project goes, I'm I'm starting it out of, with the effort I'm putting in, because I'm providing the communication tools, right? So I'm doing that myself. But it is all I'm doing. I'm not like actually doing any hemp growing projects, but I'm providing the communication tools for people to link up together, to find financiers, to find seed suppliers, to find, people with land and people who want to grow hemp and who are growing hemp and who can share knowledge and all the rest of it, and make that happen, for that continent. And in November, I've got 3 climate summits to attend, 2 next week. And in November, there's the big one. I'm in talks with the ambassador for the African Union, who I've worked with for the last 2 years. Since I started doing all this research, then I've gained assistance from Durham University in the UK, Zimbabwe University, and the African Union, which is, really major. And on that site, if people have a look at inspiration, that page, they will see why I'm doing this. So I hope people will look at that. It's a set of tools to enable people to work together and do all that and share knowledge. And such as a knowledge base, you go in there and you ask a question, and then that's directed to somebody who knows how to answer that, a specialist in that area. They answer it, and once it's answered, then that's it. Somebody else comes in, asks the same thing, and the answer pops up. They don't have to take up people's time with the same old thing again. And the same with a tendering system. I built a tendering system in 2013 for a hospital in Chicago. I built another one, an updated one, for the PPE supply for the COVID-19 pandemic here last year, when I couldn't get the stuff. So I built that, and it took down the time it took for some people from 4 to 5 hours of getting a PPE supply, like gloves, down to literally 5 to 10 minutes.
Tony, I'd love to continue this conversation. I want to get on to carbon. I've got a couple of topics that I actually want to bring up. I saw a couple of interests peak up as we started to bring up some of the things you were talking about. There was a good question that when we were talking about the sequestration and the end, let me see, Sandra, I don't know if you're still on. There was a great question that just came in. And I've seen it asked a couple of different times about the total sequestration and the end product and calculating that. There's a couple of people on here that have LCAs on products, and I don't know if any of you can speak. I know Alan's on here. I saw Bruce, you've worked on this quite a bit and projects we're working on. I don't know if you want to give an update about the drawdown projects that you're specifically working on, and then if you maybe can speak as well to that end, the end use, not just the sequestration in the soil, but into those end use products as well. And then Neil. Go ahead, Bruce.
Sure. Yeah, I think somebody just referenced a grow out in California. Tony, I know you were involved in that, along with Lawrence Serpin and Tommy, and had some really great yields. And so if you take a look at their numbers, they ended up generating, I think it was 3.97 tons of dried herd per acre. So if you take that herd and you turn it into hemp block or hempcrete, which is going to have it sequestered for over 100 years, which meets the IPCC standard, and that's the gate, I guess. You simply take that herd, that call it 4 tons, multiply that times 0.45, because that's how much carbon is in plant material in general, and then multiply that times 3.67 to get your CO2e. You're going to come out with about, I think it was 5.5 tons. If you kind of shave that down a little bit, because you're going to have some scope 1, 2, and 3. So in effect, what I do is I use the number 1.38. Just multiply it times 1.38 to get an estimate of the amount of CO2 that's going to be sequestered for over 100 years. You've also got some other materials that are there too. You have the bast, etc., which can be used for textiles, etc. But your shirt's not going to last 100 years, so you'd have to throw in an additional calculation there saying that it's only going to be sequestered for 10 years or something like that. And of course, then you have that soil. So hence the question about how much CO2 is sequestered into the soil. And I've seen that number range anywhere from 0.5 ton per acre of additionality all the way up to 6 tons. And I'm still not sure if those numbers, which one's the closest. There's a lot of people that are talking about that, but the key there is really just to measure how much new additionality, how much additional soil carbon has been added. And to Neil's point, that's that carbon. Then, if you can measure that, and I know Eric's on here somewhere. I think I saw Eric's here. He is measuring that at the beginning of this year's crop. He's going to be measuring at the end of this year's crop. So within a few months, I guess Eric will have a pretty solid number there, so we can really kind of rely on a solid number. But bottom line, you're going to be sequestering CO2 into the soil, and that's the farmer's credit. And then you're going to be sequestering even more CO2 equivalent into hemp blocks and hemp creek, that sort of thing. So the bigger number of sequestration is actually from the material above the soil.
Eric, do you have anything you want to add? He kind of called you out. I don't know if you're on, and I saw Alan, you're on as well. I don't know if you'd like to add anything.
No, I mean, Bruce is correct. I think a lot of people are doing studies on soil to better understand the sequestration, and with the ultimate goal of monetizing for the farmers, right? So carbon credits, as you guys have been talking about. So yeah, we'll be willing to share our data, as it unfolds. And I think other people have data too. If I remember, Aaron Barr was on a session in July, and he talked about Canadian Rockies having significant amount of data on soil testing and carbon content in the soil. So I think ultimately going to want to have a session where maybe all of us can come on and share our data, and we start to, kind of map out what's realistic.
Well, do you guys want to kind of talk about what we're doing or what you're doing over at Drawdown and the goal of combining data and peer reviews on that data and so forth? Because I think, Neil, you may be interested or have a few people on your team, as we've spoken, who are actively looking into the research that might be interested in the data piece of where these guys are. I say these guys, I mean we. I just show up. Go ahead, Bruce or Eric or anybody else that's on that team.
Sure. Yeah. So we started a couple of months ago with the idea of quantifying as many different hemp products and what their carbon footprint would be, and what their possibility would be to not only reduce CO2 out of the atmosphere, sequester it in long term, but also to avoid CO2. Because what's going on right now is there's a lot of attention out there in the carbon reduction marketplace, and we're seeing solutions like direct air capture and carbon capture utilization, or carbon capture utilization and storage. And these are technologies that are interesting. We need all the technologies we can possibly get out there, but they're the ones that are getting a lot of visibility, and hemp is getting very little. So there's a lot of us, that are part of this Drawdown Hemp team organized organizing to discover these different ways that we can sequester or avoid CO2. And ultimately, within the next couple of months, we'll be sharing all this information. And hopefully it'll be fairly accurate. We're trying to get peer reviews and this sort of thing as we go. But it's something that we'll probably have a big session on a couple of months down the road here.
If you're looking for people to join, what is the role for those team members, and how do people join right now? How do people get? I know you're really heavy in the data collection and, like I said, peer review research side. Yeah, how do people get involved, Bruce?
They just send me an email, bruce.dietzen@yahoo.com, and then I'll send you an invitation for our email list. We get together on Saturdays for about an hour every Saturday. And it's not just a club or anything like that. You know, if you want to get involved, the expectation is that you'll actually do some research, and then we can discuss it. And so we're right at the point now we're getting big enough that we're having breakout sessions. So there's a team for biochar. There's a team. There's a bunch of different teams. We had one on fuels yesterday, biofuels. We're looking at probably 20 different types of products right now, hemp-based products, and trying to identify those two different things. So if you want to be part of that, the expectation is that you're going to spend a little time every week doing some research, coming back, and then discussing it with the other members on the team.
Yes. So I see there's lots of comments about textiles. Sandra, yes, textiles is definitely one of the categories. Really, it's
big category. Yeah.
Studying that end product, right? And the carbon sequestration and avoidance through the entire life cycle. I guess seed to, right?
And what's really key about this is that there's opportunities where it's not just soil. You know, most folks in this carbon space right now in agriculture are simply looking at the soil, how much more carbon can be stored in the soil. But the nice thing about hemp is that it can be turned into durable goods. So the opportunity for storing carbon on a long-term basis using hemp is better than most types of crops. You're not storing any carbon into a durable good or a house when you grow rice or when you grow corn or something like that. Good. But hemp just happens to be great material to build houses with. So, Cody, awesome. You had a question?
No, Cody.
I just finished by saying that in November there's the COP26, which is the world's biggest climate summit in Glasgow, and I'm in talks with the African Union about being in their team, right? And if I manage to do that, then the African Union is sending 25 government representatives to represent all 54 nations in Africa. And I will be negotiating with all of those people, and therefore all of those countries, about legalizing industrial hemp and growing it and processing it and so on. So I just wanted to say that, yes.
We need to, however we can support you in bridging that gap. We've got lots of people who can definitely aid in that.
Could be going on the site and registering interest and, saying, yes, I want to be part of this team. Yeah, that we can fix this crisis that we're in, and we can heal the planet, literally.
Yep. So my goal is to link arms, that we link arms, I guess, with projects exactly like this. There's another initiative that runs right alongside with what Bruce is doing as well, and the research and projects that you guys have. And so however we as an association can support that mission, that's definitely our goal. Neil, do you have anything you want to add to what Bruce has added, or Eric, Tony? Go ahead.
Oh, I just, again, trying to assist Mandi with this question, at least from the production of hemp carbon issue stuff. When I've talked to the those that are in the game of actually executing and doing this, the hemp industry is just such a big question mark in terms of really any level of detail about how this will operate, that I really encourage the association to have some sort of a quick agenda for your going into the fall 22 about, what is it, what is the critical path to really kind of get a number of these things going. The plenty of people willing to do something with hemp if you can get it, right? And then on the other end, who wants to grow it if you can't sell it anywhere? So it's a really kind of a tough, I don't think it's abnormal for new products, but in agriculture, it's only occasionally we see a crop come in that nobody knows anything about. And hemp is indeed one of them. So those that have knowledge, please share to the rest of the rookies here on what the story is, so that we can get at it and, next season really show up really great stuff. In any case, I stand by. I'm open to any producer comes forward, wants to try to get hemp into their rotation and test the opportunity of carbon sequestration with the hemp as a feature of the additionality in the deal. So thank you so much, Mandi. You do a great job. Appreciate it.
Bill, go ahead. I see you've got a question.
I came in late. I apologize. I came across somebody in the Midwest the other day, and maybe Neil or someone knows. Once again, here we go again. Last year's crop harvested, they have about 700 tons of flour, CBD flour in super sacks in their warehouse, nowhere to process it. Does anybody have any guidance or direction there? I mean, it's strange that this happens time and again. And I guarantee if we can find this guy home for his hemp, we definitely will get him to join the group. For sure.
I actually have a gentleman reached out looking for a significant amount of biomass. He doesn't care that it's last year's crop or this year's crop necessarily. I'll connect you directly.
Okay.
But I don't know where he is in the process. It's been about a week that he's been looking for them. So, and I know when this volume goes out, everybody jumps on it. And so, but I will definitely send it out to you on my end. Does anybody else have any support? Or Bill, do you want to share your contact info? Vinny, I saw your hand go up. I don't know if you want to add a comment. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, what I would like to say is, I guess the importance of the carbon credits will be starting with the beginning, which is a pre-factibility study. I always compare this, and I like analogies, Mandi, you know me, is if you get married and later on you don't like the marriage, you're trying to force your wife to sign a prenup, you're doomed. The prenup needs to be signed before you get married. So for all of the guys trying to do carbon credits, carbon sequestration, and get a program, before you do anything, you need to do a pre-factibility study that will tell you if it's feasible, which standard will be the best one. I'm kind of concerned here. I'm wondering why you never mentioned gold standard. For me, it's one of the best ones, but it's okay. But on the pre-factibility study, you will have to decide which methodology, which standard, and you have to begin with that one. And another thing that is important is it doesn't matter how much data do we have if we don't do it according to verified standard. And just to give you an idea, and you know this, Neil, some of the banks or some of the companies trading carbon credits, if you don't have a trusted standard, they would just don't buy the carbon credits for you, or the price will be extremely low, which is going to be a huge difference. So I guess we need to start with pre-factibility studies, choose a methodology. And another thing is, from beginning from end is going to take you between 18 to 24 months to get the issuance of the credits, and you have to do the PDD, you have to do the stakeholders meeting just to begin. I mean, it is a long process. So it's nothing that you're going to go and do. And pardon me if I'm saying like that. It's not that you do soil tests and then you get the carbon credits. The soil test might be helpful for the project, but at the beginning, it's a long process. It takes a lot. None of us has the experience to do that. Maybe Neil, I do not have. That's why we have someone in our company that has been doing carbon credits and carbon markets for 17 years. And we're, using his information and his knowledge. He has worked for Gold Standard for 12 years. He worked for the United Nations when the Kyoto Protocol was signed. He worked for BERA. So I think that the key is to find a right consultant for every single company to do this, Mandi, because otherwise we're going to be look like another crap from the crop that we have from the CBD oil and the cannabinoids 2 or 3 years ago. And will be nice if we can avoid that one. That's the only thing that I have to say.
Hello. Hi, guys. I heard about the 700 tons. My name's Adam Keel. I'm with Oregon Hemp Traders. I can process 700 tons if it's in the Midwest. And you just talk about logistics. I just want to let you know I'm very interested in joining your organization. I was invited by JC. We're doing pilot programs in South Texas, by the way, and we have autoflower genetics, so we can grow off cycles outside of cotton and corn cycles as long as it's warm enough. But I just want to chime in and let you know if you want contact info, please ask. But thank you. I'm very excited to work with you guys. Awesome.
Thanks, Adam. Neil, do you have anything to add to Vinny's comment? I think that had some good.
Vinny's, that's absolutely right. But also, you have to understand there's some of these standards were in place 10, 12 years ago when nobody knew anything about any of this carbon game. Since that occurrence, now you have a number of smaller registries with protocols that are very adequate for the certification process they offer. The piece that is missing yet are what we call the main net, meaning there's actually a physical place where those buying and selling these carbon credits can go and find stuff. One of the points I like to leave with, there's different qualities of carbon credits, right? There is, just like you have, popcorn, you have feed corn, you have sweet corn, you have these different qualities of registries. In the registries are different qualifications on the carbon. Some registries cost more money to get your numbers on registry, and because they have a much higher certification process, you can't just get by with giving a once a year report. You have to have soil survey, you have to have consultant, you have to have review, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this is an evolving area. In this document that's embedded in the video, there are 4 registries with protocols. Some are really headbangers. Vera is a really good one. Nori on the opposite end is a voluntary based one, but both are set up in such that down the track, when we need more and more verifications, more sufficiencies, the network called blockchain will enable this. So we're in evolution. You guys in the hemp business need a registry for hemp, right? You need for both production hemp, you need then all this passed down hemp. If you're taking and embodying this into concrete blocks, that whole history of, what went into the blocks when, and how long has it been in the wall? And oh my gosh, we had a bad run of 4,000 bricks because we had rotten materials get into the system. There's all sorts of stuff in a registry and a blockchain to help identify these things for you as you go through time. I don't understand it all. I've learned by the hard knocks. So
there are few good producers I see on this call. I don't know if you guys have specific questions or discussions that we want to get started. I see Paul's on here and Tarot's on here. I know Sandra's involved on the textile side. Klaus, I know. Nathan, if any of you would like to chime in, I know Bill, Kurt, I don't know if you have anything. We are coming up on an hour and a half already, or an hour and 15 minutes. So maybe wrap it up with a few questions towards the end and then call it quits in 15 minutes. But Neil, I'd love to, if you want to share your contact information, I would really like to put together, like he said, a group and utilize the resources at the universities to, move projects forward alongside with initiatives like Drawdown or Evolve 2030 or any of these others that you guys are actively doing as well. Paul or Kurt, Adam, you said, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add. Eric's involved on the farm. Rusty's involved on the farm level. I know some of you I don't know, so if I'm not calling on you, don't take it personally. Tony, we heard from you a little bit.
This is Adam Keel again. I'm sorry, I was invited to the meeting and I'm actually on the road, but I would like to be able to see if we can exchange contact info. I can definitely help the gentleman get quotes or at least logistical support for the 700 tons of material in the Midwest. But we're also making bioplastics with a pilot program in Texas, which we could give you guys data on the value of that as it's sold into the supply chain. They're going to be using that plastic to make basically anything you can make out of plastic, but we're making it out of hemp hurd. And so I'd like to work with anybody on that. We're building it. The facilities they're all prototypes, but they're working. And one of them's, I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth today. One of them's here and it's operational and it's working great. So we would love to see if we can work with you on getting carbon credits. Then with the usable hemp products, bioplastics are a great one because they basically completely provide an alternative to petroleum-based plastics. And we can also make them biodegradable over certain sets of time.
Sure.
So that's one thing. But yes, please, if you can, if we can exchange contact info, I don't know if you guys will allow me to do that. I could give you my information. Would that be allowed?
Yeah. Can you text it or type it into the chat?
I cannot right now, but if you guys will maybe make a note and maybe type it in for me, that would be helpful.
Yes.
In the field right now.
Now would be a great time too. Those of you go to thehemphallway.com or globalhempassociation.org and request an invitation to join the platform. You then become part of the community. You can chat back and forth. You can search, join groups, post jobs, post projects. If you're looking to raise capital, you can create actually a deck and keep it private or share it. We're going to have a group on there. I actually created an entire group for the Drawdown group and the Evolve initiative. And so you'll be able to see what they're doing, request to join. If you're part of that group, you'll actually have a place that you can go as well. But really an opportunity to bring people together. I see there's another request for Tony's email, Tony Crooks. I don't know which one you're looking for, Jennifer. I'm assuming Tony with that in Africa. Tony's got Jennifer's also. For those of you that Jennifer, you want to share a little bit about what you're also working on? Just real quick blurb.
Sure. So we've partnered with a top tier technology company to pull them into hemp and cannabis in managing total end-to-end supply chain, utilizing blockchains and AI and machine learning and all that good stuff. We actually do carbon credit management. We're a global infrastructure already in place. So we have over 20,000 transportation providers, over 90,000 companies utilizing our system and our network. And I wanted to get a hold of Tony because our backbone is the backbone for the Ministry of Health of Africa. And so all of that, all of the cannabis will run through the Ministry of Health. So that's kind of my little quick blurb.
Thank you.
Jennifer, do we look you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mandi.
You want to share your contact info, Jennifer, please? How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I typed it in the chat along with our website. So thank you.
The goal is so when you're on here, you guys can engage and then use this tool outside of. I look at this, the platform, really, it's like an annual year-round networking event or expo, right? You guys have a constant opportunity to receive hundreds of hours of recorded content and transcribed notes that you guys can use and then connect from there. So any other questions or anything that anybody else would like to add real quick? I feel like we've made some good progress. Of course, I still am eyeballing people I want to call on, but it's okay if you don't want to talk. I want to get you in a room. So with that being said, I would love to start. For those of you that I have not met yet, I would love to meet you one-on-one, understand better what you're doing. For those of you that don't know me very well, I'm really passionate about connecting people and building the supply chain and connecting you to what you need. And I'm sure that there's a few of you on here that can give some great testimony to where my passion comes genuinely in connecting you guys. And so the more I know about you and the more I know about what you need, the better it is and the easier it is for my team. We have a full team of people. It's not just me. And so when you guys do have requests, don't hesitate to send them over, and then we will actively prospect and try to build communities and conversations around what you're looking for, and hopefully answer questions and help drive the market. Like I said before, we are getting ready to launch a pretty big initiative to help drive consumer demand. And so I'm excited about that. For those of you that are interested in getting involved or have questions, don't hesitate to holler at me. And I think that's about it. Anything else? Ross, I see you nodding your head. I always love hearing from you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hope you are. Another great program. And beyond that, I'll
well, maybe
stay quiet and listen, which is a good growth opportunity for me.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much. Westtown Bank has been fabulous. They're great supporters of the association and of the industry. And so thank you very much for what you guys are doing as well. Anything else? Anyone else? Rich, hello. It's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for the meeting, Mandy. Very educational. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Awesome job.
Absolutely. Okay. Bob Moore, was that you raising your hand, or are you waving goodbye? Goodbye. Well, darn it. Danica, it's great to see you guys. Okay. Well, thank you guys very, very much. We do have another event on Thursday. It's our education series. We've got some pioneers within the industry that are coming to talk. It's at 2:00 p.m. Mountain Time, so just an hour later than this one started. And then I will be on the road tonight and all day tomorrow, really trying to open the conversation around the construction and building industries, attending some large conferences that are not hemp events, but talking about hemp products within those industries and sectors. And so let me know if you guys have anything specific you want me to go after, or any other way that I can help.
I am respectfully raising my hand. I loved everything about this. By the way, thank you for bringing all of us amazing people together. I am actually implementing the first hemp ecosystem on my farm. So we're going to be using all hemp blocks and also hemp fuel.
Okay.
So that's what we're up to on my end. I was listening to all the good stuff, but I would love for you to make your way around and kind of talk to our engineer and all that good stuff.
I would love to. Well, and equally as much for those of you that, again, there's so much information. I try to go live a couple of times a week at 10 a.m. This week I'm not, just because I'll be traveling, but they are recorded and on our YouTube channel. And so if you or anybody that you know within your network is doing things right, I'd love to highlight them and give them a platform to educate and share what we're working on and help make connections. And so whether it's an engineer or research, the business development, it's all a valuable piece of this. And yeah, love to, Danica. Aaron, go ahead. I saw your hands up, sir. Love to hear from you again. And good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I work with a 3D printing construction company, and we actually have a partnership currently to develop a hempcrete. But we are also interested in learning more of the other, companies that are working in the industrial, like construction, building materials arena, because we know there's a lot out there. So trying to compete with cement and concrete.
Okay,
I would love to chat with you further about that for sure.
Let's collaborate if we can, because I'd love to learn a little bit more, especially as I'm walking right into this big event. Yeah, for a couple of different projects. Also, we have a construction and building materials meeting that meets once a month. If you log onto your hemp hallway, you'll be able to see all of the upcoming meetings. They are separated in GHA meetings, so our virtual meetings, as well as posting industry meetings. You guys as members have capability of sharing member meetings, posting as well on the platform. So please get engaged, get involved in the forums. Aaron, I'd love to help make connections, especially in that sector, and start driving the conversation. So yeah, other than that, thank you guys very much for joining today. Neil, it was a pleasure to have you and start this conversation. Really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Have a good day.
Aloha, Mandi.